Hi folks, it seems certain that the far right will make headway in the elections to the Strasbourg-based European Parliament that will take place in early June in 27 countries. But it is far less likely that they will exercise the influence that the media and some of their rivals think or claim they think. For starters, in the European Parliament, which has 705 seats and will be adding 15 new seats this time, control is firmly in the hands of a loose entente among three forces: the traditional right, the traditional socialists, and the so-called centrists. In all likelihood, these three groups, center-right, center, and center-left, will continue to represent together more than the sum of any political bloc in which the far right might seek to play a major role. Even if the far right gains between 30 and say 50 new seats, as some polls predict, it is extremely unlikely that it'll be able to displace the three blocs who tend to vote together when push comes to shove. This matters. Why? Well, apart from passing legislation and scrutinizing what the European authorities are up to, whoever dominates the European Parliament plays a role in shaping foreign policy, including trade policy across the Union, and has a say in the appointment of the officials that make up that labyrinth, that bureaucratic maze that we call the European institutions. Of the four major countries of the EU, only in France is the far right ahead in the polls. I'm talking about Marine Le Pen's Rassemblement National, of course. In Germany, Europe's biggest player, the Christian Democrats, i.e. the center-right, are ahead, and Alternative für Deutschland, the far right, which was in second place until recently, is now losing ground to the Social Democrats and may come in third. In Italy, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's Fratelli d'Italia are ahead, but although she shares some views with the far right, her tenure so far does not indicate that she belongs in that group outright. It would be more accurate to say that she has one foot in the center-right and the other on the left side of the far right, if such a funny place even exists. Lega, which is Italy's more clearly defined far-right representative in the European Union and the European Parliament, is running fourth or fifth, depending on the poll. And in Spain, Vox is running a distant third to the center-right conservatives and the socialists. So again, only in one out of those four is the clearly defined hard right ahead in the polls. Even in Poland, the fifth largest country represented in Strasbourg, the hard right, until recently overwhelmingly dominant in that country, is tied with the liberals. Now, the two hardcore right-wing alliances in the European Parliament are the ECR and the IND. I only mention the initials to make things less confusing, but the first of these two groups, ECR, is a mix of parties that have ideological differences. Meloni's party and Vox are much less Eurosceptic than, say, Alternative für Deutschland and France's Reconquête, and Meloni is a far cry from Alternative für Deutschland on several other issues. In fact, various members of the ECR are aiming after this election to form some sort of entente with the traditional center-right, the single largest group in the European Parliament, in order to prevent the left from exercising power in that institution. IND, the other, tougher, hard-right alliance, would not be a part of such an entente, nor would they accept even if invited. An understanding between the ECR and the center-right is not entirely out of the question. Even the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, from Germany's center-right Christian Democratic Union, has flirted with the idea. But that would force the ECR to make many compromises and therefore tone down its far-right positions. More importantly, such an entente would still need a third partner to add up to a majority of votes in Parliament. The only realistic possibility would be the centrist alliance called Renew Europe, but that would moderate the far-right's positions even more. In any case, the odds that Renew Europe join forces with ECR are not great at all, because that would mean, for instance, Emmanuel Macron's party dancing with the new party of Éric Zemmour, a ferocious critic of the French president. All of which means, again, that the far right will not become dominant in the European Parliament after these elections, say the media what it likes. Having said that, even if the prospects of the far right playing a dominant role in the next European Parliament are slim, there is one thing that we should worry about, at least those of us who believe in an open, liberal, democratic, globalized Europe where the free circulation of goods, services, capital, and ideas is a substantive value. If the three traditional blocs, the center-right, the center, and the center-left, that currently have the upper hand, managed, despite a reduced representation after the June elections, to keep the far right from translating their probable gains into significantly greater political power in Europe, the hard right voters will become frustrated and perhaps more vocal and militant in various countries. And the far right parties might be in a position to make their iconoclastic anti-systemic discourse relevant beyond those voters to an increasing number of Europeans who mistrust Brussels and Strasbourg, are fed up with the politicians around them, and are hurting economically. And that is something we do need to keep our eyes open for.